to shake out your money-making truth. You're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom, creating wealth from spiritual health on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Have you ever wondered why some people work really hard for their money while others live lives of joy and abundance with seemingly little effort? You are about to learn powerful, tangible steps to shifting your mindset and connecting to your flow of money and abundance. Jennifer teaches you to connect to who you are at a soul level and how to use that connection to create a personal and specific relationship with money. Learn how money is a powerful tool to achieve your desires and your desires to then serve the world. So shake out your money-making truth right now. Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Bloom, host of Soul Wisdom Abundance, Create Wealth Through Spiritual Health here on Transformation Talk Radio. And as always, I am delighted, I'm thrilled that we're sharing space today, getting to have all of kinds of conversations about how to do money in a new way. Glad that if you're listening for the first time, welcome. And of course, if you've been here for a while, I'm really glad that you're finding the information helpful. So this podcast really is about helping all of us as individuals, all the way through communities to the planet, find a new way to work with money. Because we tend to work with money through the old systems. We tend to work through it through our own personal lens, our memories, our experiences, and that really creates some havoc when we work with money. So the podcast is about really being able to come to consciousness around money. And one of the ways I love doing that is through talking about the soul money relationship. Now, if this is a brand new concept for you and you want to know more about it, come on over to my website, it's jenniferbloom.com, and you can learn about it. The best place to start is through the Soul Money Relationship Quiz. It's going to help you understand the different components of the relationship and which one of those components could use a little bit of love. Okay. So I'm really thrilled about our conversation today, but I'm just going to set it up just a little bit with a conversation, and then I'm going to introduce my guest. So the way I want to start the conversation is by saying I use the word soul very intentionally. It's kind of a buzzword these days, but I use it really intentionally, both in the name of the podcast and in the soul money relationship. Lots of people talk about being in a relationship with money, which is fantastic because we're not raised to understand that we're in relationship with anything, particularly money, but it leaves out a very important player. It leaves out the divine. The divine is the ultimate resource for money. It is the ultimate, I should say it differently. Divine is the ultimate source of money. And we who are handing money back and forth to each other are just being resources of the divine. Now, when we understand that the divine is part of the soul money relationship, right? It's you, it's money, and the divine. There are a couple of things that switch here. The first is that we have to acknowledge the presence of divinity. And second, we get to learn how to lead this relationship in a brand new way. When we don't actively lead our relationship, we tend to lead it from fear. We tend to lead it from ego. We tend to lead it from, as I was saying at the top, from all of our past experiences and on all of it. And even maybe more important, we tend to lead it from this old vision of what money is. That money is about power, that money is about grabbing what you can have because otherwise somebody else is going to take it from you. From this old idea that resources are limited and that if I don't get mine, then I'm out of luck, right? So when we acknowledge soul and divine as part of that relationship, we have to come to the table aligned with soul. We can't do it aligned with ego. And when we do it from this place of soul, we're connecting to money in this really clean, current, connected way. We are approaching it from this open heart that's really ready to get back into that model of giving and receiving and trust. we're operating from this understanding that resources are available to every single person on this planet, and that it's no longer about a power grab, because we all have equal opportunity to get to those resources if we can get through the other layers, right? There's some other work to be done so that those resources can be equal, but at least when we know that they're equal, we get to step in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, soul and soul leadership isn't just in money. Soul, when we add soul to leadership in all areas, things begin to change, the world begins to shift. And this is why I have my guest here today. I want to introduce you to Tess Vergara, who is all about soul-powered leadership. And I am thrilled that you're here. Welcome, Tess.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jennifer. I'm so thrilled to be here, and great introduction there.
Oh,
really great.
Super, super. Well, I tell you what, I don't usually read people's bios, but your bio is filled with amazing information just to start. So let me just tell people a little bit about you by what it is that you share about yourself. Okay. So you are a soul-powered executive coach, correct? And so who addresses the conflicts many executives face between mind and heart, soul and ego. Through her coaching programs, Tess guides executives, leaders, and change makers to the shift from fear power to soul power, so they can fulfill their unique mark in the world. Soul power is the revolution that helps leaders achieve financial freedom and abundance, master productivity and creativity, and gain true wealth and happiness in a way that feels good and right without compromise and inner conflict. And you're also the host of your own podcast show, which is called Soul Power to the People podcast, that sheds light on crimes against humanity to return soul power to the people.
Yes.
Wow. I just get goosebumps when I read that, which is why I wanted to share it in whole with everybody so that people can understand who we're talking with here. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So we could go 100 different ways with this conversation today, but here's where I'd love to start, and then let's just see where we end up. I'm really curious about how you came to the understanding of the power of soul-powered leadership, and how that became something that is so important to you and to the work that you bring to the world.
Right. Well, I came from, my old training was accounting, right? So I was a financial director. I was a financial controller for many years, for nearly 30 years. But why was it that I was still longing for fulfillment? Why was, it was like I was so disconnected from my soul, even though I know I'm a soul, but it felt so far-fetched that there was no fulfillment where I was. So there I was with a great family, with a great career, but I felt so empty. And I thought I was going to die an accountant, and I had no idea my soul had so much more to bring into manifest, right? To make man, to make flesh. And so that's where I came into soul power, because there was a point in my life where I just said, God, just take me back. I don't belong here. Just take me back. I know I'm not from around here. And I started praying that since I was like 8, 9, 10. I just knew that I did not belong. But then that prayer, I heard myself saying that same prayer that I said at 8, 9, and 10 when I was having a dark night of the soul, is what I call it. Because the separation from the soul was so excruciatingly painful. There was no point for me to be here. At least that was where I was at that time. It was depression. It was burnout. It was money did not matter anymore. So that's where I was. And then came to a point where, okay, God, what do you want from me? How can I make my life better? How can I make life better for other people? It's still not the answer. It's God source, like you said, the divine will not tell you what to do.
Darn it anyway.
And I'm like, okay, fine. You're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to answer my prayer. You're not going to take me back. Fine. I'm going to find my joy. I'm going to, from now on, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to fully express myself. And that's when one by one, layer by layer, my soul kept expanding and expanding into the full embodiment. I mean, when I say full, we are never full because we're infinite beings. But it's full to the point of our allowance. So it's like, wow, 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 great. Okay, now I can have this little piece of heaven. Now I have the soul recognition. Now I know who I am. And then it expands from there. Now, how can I teach people how to do this? How can I bring people into that reconciliation? Which was what I was doing as an accountant anyway, reconciling, balancing the ledgers, right? This time it's balancing the ledgers of life. How do we then unite with life itself, with source itself, source as self, right? How do we not take away the divine from the equation of money, from the equation of relationship, from the equation of health? We cannot take God out. We got to bring God back in. And how do we bring God back in? God is such a big concept. Everyone understands soul because we all have a glimpse of our soul. And so for me, that is the missing link. Whenever we feel miserable, whenever we feel unfulfilled in this world, it's because we're so disconnected from our own light, from the light of God, from our very soul.
Yes, so powerful and so true. And it's interesting as I'm listening to you. I find myself much more comfortable in the realm of talking about soul and divinity. For me, God still carries a little bit, the word itself, not the entity,
The word itself,
but
yes.
the word itself still carries a little bit of, I don't know, it feels a little bit outside of me. Soul, I can, I'm recognizing more and more, I've been thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, soul, I can bring in and live it. So I'm curious, and it's language, right? We have to use the language that works for all of us, that works for each of us, right? But really what we're talking about is reunification and allowing ourselves to stop this illusion that we're separate from divinity, separate from God, separate from each other.
Yeah.
Right? So
Correct.
yeah, talk to me a little bit about that concept of separation and where does it come from and why do we believe it so strongly?
Well, it's trauma, right? We are light beings. We are light beings. And we came, okay, so we have four bodies, right? Physical, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, right? So if we go to the mental realm, for example, we have a thought, oh, I'm going to have chicken tonight. And that thought, we manifest that by going to the store and buying chicken. Easy peasy, right? But imagine us as light beings, a soul coming down to earth, very pure light form, taking shape into this body. It's the most dense expression there is. So that created a separation right there from our own light, right? From spirit into form. That is the trauma right there. Our first experience of separation from our own divinity, from God itself, from creation itself. So we became this wee little thing, right? That had to be slapped.
I know we're trying to change that, but yes.
Actually, I went into an NLP or past life regression or something, and the facilitator asked me, when was your first experience of anger? And I went all the way through the birth canal, and that sensational, that was my first recollection of anger. And I asked my mom, did you not want me as a child because I was a girl? No, are you crazy? No, where did you get that idea? But it was that, the spank, because that, like, and so that was our first experience of separation, is the physicalization the reincarnation into this body. And so we forgot, we had that amnesia. We totally forgot that we are divine, that we are light. And then all we see depends on what kind of parents we chose, right?
Right.
To guide us back into our soul recognition towards the end. Sorry about the siren.
No worries. Minneapolis, right? You and I are in the same place. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, cool. So anyway, so that separation right there. And you talked about memories. You talked about experiences, you know, and how you were treated. So that the trauma from the separation from God. And then the observation of the child from 0 to 7 years old. Everything our parents or caretakers said, we took it in as gospel.
Yes. Yes. Little sponges.
Had no filter to say or to distinguish at that time whether that was right or wrong. So what was fed into us, and we call this programming or conditioning. And really, our caretakers didn't know any better, right? Right. They were also separated from their goodness and holiness and all that. They also didn't know. So it got passed on, and we call that culture. We call that whatever, right? We call that history.
Right. We call it, and unfortunately, we call it truth. Right. We take those memories and experiences and those aspects of ourselves, and we give them a capital T. But they're not, you know, they're
just
not
an experience.
Exactly.
It's just a real fraction. Again, we're infinite, big beings of light. But then we shrink our light into that small body. And then depending on what we were allowed to have or not have, that was our filter, that was our lens, that was our map of the world, which is a very, you know, we have blinders on. We didn't know. So yeah, I hope that gives people a glimpse of what creates separation.
Right. Okay. So here we are. We're a planet of people walking around in various states of separation. I've got 12 questions, and I'm just trying to think about the best one I wanted to go to. So we're all in these various states of separation. What, from your point of view, as we start to wake up a little bit and say there has to be something more here, well, God, you're not taking back, so there must be something here for me. Whatever that message is, what's your recommendation for people? How do you help people walk through, or do you help people walk through that journey back into reconciliation, back into wholeness?
Okay, well, we know when we are out of alignment. We know when we're just appeasing to others. We know when we're people pleasing. We know when we're doing something against our soul. We know it.
And how would you say that we know that? I have an answer, but what would you say is your answer to that?
Well, there's, you know, the lower energetic forms, which are guilt, which are anger, which are resentment, anything that pulls us into lower consciousness. And we feel that, we know that, but what we have been conditioned to do is leave ourselves last.
Yes. Yes.
Push it under the rug, sweep it under the rug, just put a sock in it, don't complain, right? Just do as you're told, or don't shake the table, don't talk too much, don't be too much, don't, right? People told us so many no's from the time we were born to the time we say, and said, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. I can't sell my soul anymore. I can't prostitute myself anymore. And when I say prostitute, I don't mean prostituting sexually, but that integrity that gets, you know.
Right. I refuse to walk around like this anymore. Right. I refuse to be this angry, person who's feeling shame and embarrassment and guilt, whatever, this need to be perfect, this need to please everybody around me, this can't be. And I think that we're really conditioned to think that those emotions, we've been told, take all those emotions and turn them into work, like you as motivators, right? Like take that guilt, take it and just push and push so that you can prove that you're worthy, right?
Yes.
And
All
that's
that
part of,
proving.
and that's part of the money game, right? That's the old way to make money, is prove, earn, push, do. Okay, so we're recognizing we're out of alignment because we've got these emotions that feel crappy in our bodies that we've been stuffing away for a long time. And now we're saying, yeah, not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And okay, so take us from there. What's next?
Well, okay, so you're unhappy, right? So the first thing that you need to do is have that talk in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. What is making you so unhappy? And first, like you said, it's the job, it's the weight, it's how I look, it's all that. But it's all, again, the conditioning of the society of how we should look, how we should feel, what our relationship should look like, what our house should look like. But we forget one very important element, which is you. So I had to really relearn who I was. And again, this is all subconscious behavior that we don't know about. We don't go around and walk around and say, hey, this is the day I'm going to be victimized, or this is the day I'm going to give away my freedom, or this is going to be the day I please my mother or husband or children, right? No, the self-abandonment process was seeded from the very beginning when we were told no, right? Or when it's like that's the first thing that was conditioned to us by society, is the self-abandonment. And what we need to know is really get to know ourselves from a deeper level. It's, what kind of egg do I want for breakfast? As a single mom of 15 years, I didn't know. I ate leftovers. I asked my children what they wanted. So I had no idea that I was taking away from myself when all I wanted was to put food on the table. It was very noble. It was the only thing I knew how to do, because that's what my mother did. What was the messaging I got from my mom? That you are my joy, that my life means so much because of you. She never said my life means a lot because of me. No one ever says that.
Right.
We are conditioned to self-abandon. So first thing first is look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am worthy. I am, whatever it is. For me, I always knew I'm a daughter of a bigger power, of the one, right? And I knew that love was so important, but then love got bastardized so much that love had so many attachments. So be really dirt honest with yourself, right? Brutally honest with yourself. It's brutal because it hurts to admit that you've been abandoning yourself all this time.
Yeah, I can feel that even with all the work, right? Even all the coming back to myself that I've done, I can still feel that kernel in my belly a little bit of, wow, look at all of the places where I was so separate from who I was. And all of the wealth of people around me that I really would prefer to please. I'm not a huge people pleaser, but there are a few really important people in my life who I needed to make sure thought highly of me. And I can feel that pain of that separation. Right. And still feeling like, okay, I'm bringing all these pieces back together and it doesn't matter. Right. But it's a big shift to come back here instead of, those three people or whoever it is that we each personally have those people in our lives.
Right. So one is, what do I want, right? Like really be truly honest with yourself. And then don't try to overthink what that would look like. That's where we get hung up on, I think. Oh, then I'm going to have this. We get so focused on the goals. We get so focused on the future. Then we get anxious when it doesn't happen. So just really open up to allowing, to the deserving, to the I am. And then see, because once you give yourself permission to be more than who you are being right now, the next step shows up. Then that's trust. That trust and flow and play comes in. It doesn't have to be a lot of work. It's just knowing yourself. Oh, this feels good right here. Oh, this feels good right. Oh no, not that one. I really don't like that one.
Put that one back on the shelf, right?
No. No, if you are in resistance and excuses and BS, because then that also comes into play, right? Oh no, you shouldn't know, when your ego is the one running the show, when fear is running the show, because then that's when we rob ourselves of the joy that is our highest expression, is joy.
If people walk away with nothing from this conversation but that nugget, I would be ecstatic. I want everyone to stop and pause and remember, rewind, do whatever it is you need to do. Joy is our expression. That's the life. That's it right there. Mm-hmm. And if we aren't in that space of joy, then we get to make some new choices. We get to give ourselves permission. And the other thing that you said, which was so important that I want to repeat here, is to do it step by step. Mm-hmm. If I were, it's funny, I have 3 adult children who my youngest is a senior in college. And as each of them were trying to choose their college, they would say, and particularly my youngest would say, but I have to know what I'm going to be for the rest of my life before I can choose a college. And I thought to myself, if I went to college at 17, my 17-year-old self would have no understanding of this 52-year-old woman right now. No. And this job didn't exist when I was 17. Podcasting, anything that I'm doing, none of it existed. The internet didn't exist when I was 17. So the idea to follow your joy and to allow it to be step by step. Yeah. And just the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah, it's like a blossoming. It's a blossoming. And your 17-year-old self, the one who took accounting, there were so many things why I ended up as an accountant. Mm-hmm. It wasn't exactly because, I was very practical. My father was already sending my sister to medical school. So I didn't want to be a burden to him any longer. So I took a scholarship, and that's how I became an accountant. So very practical mind why I got into that. But it led me here.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with it, right? There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, it's all experience.
Yeah, and I can see the thread from that 17-year-old who chose psychobiology and then occupational therapy and then labor and birth education, and then all of these pieces it was my soul. It was. I can see it now. Just a little nudge, just a little nudge, just a little nudge. And I didn't know it. And I had to have the cosmic 2x4 a couple of times to really get it, to be able to then say, no, there's something different here. But that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. All right. So I tell you what, I think that this is a good place to take a break. I mean, there's a million other things that we could talk about, but it feels like a time. Let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, you and I are each going to share a tool or an experience for our listeners to get an idea about how to take this next leap into living from that soul powered place. So yeah, perfect. All right. So everyone, you're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with me, Jennifer Bloom, and let's take a quick break, and then Tess and I will be back. We're going to talk about soul language. We're going to talk about other things. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Soul Wisdom Abundance with me, your host, Jennifer Bloom, and my guest, Tess Vergara. And we are talking all about soul. We're talking about soul leadership. Wow, we've got, well, there's so much more we could talk about, but I really want to get to the exercises so that people have a chance to maybe get a little bit of integration. But before we do that, Tess, can you share with the listeners the best way to learn more about your work in the world and where they can find you? There's information in the show notes, but let them know what the best place to find you is.
Sure. You can go either to tessvergara.com, TESSVERGARA.com, or soulpoweredleaders.com. And you can see Soul Powered right there, soulpoweredleaders.com. That would be the best way to get a hold of me. I'm heavily banned in other places because I talk about crimes against humanity. Anything that's dumbing down human consciousness, I speak about. I am committed to awakening to freedom and enlightenment. So anything that really robs us of joy and traps us into lower functioning, you bet I'm going to speak about it. And I love what you said earlier, that our experiences are just that. It's all tied together. It's like a thread. Our journey through this, our journey through remembrance. We have to remember first who we are. That who we are is not just this flesh. Right. So the more you can give yourself permission to allow experiences rather than have a fixed reality like your son, it has to be this, it has to be that, it has to be that. It blocks us into fixed realities where our soul is having a hard time to get in and guide us. So sometimes, we need a whack in the head, possibly 2 by 4s, to actually get our mind, the control of the mind, to loosen up a little bit so our spirit can guide us forward into our soul liberation. So, yeah.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think that we get trapped in the good and the bad of things, or the right and the wrong of things. And when we get trapped there and telling the story, I have a bankruptcy in my past. I could have very easily gotten caught in the wrongness of it and how bad that made me. And it took a lot of understanding to say, that was my soul taking me by the shoulders and doing this and saying, wake up. You are expressing your disconnection, that disconnection from your enoughness. You're expressing it through money. That's all that was, right? As embarrassing and as shameful as our culture makes bankruptcy, that's all it was. So it's important. So, oh goodness. All right. So I think that one of the very helpful things for me as I was waking up was I took every single assessment that there was, hand analysis, astrology, you name it. I did it. And those are important because they start giving you language for things, right? One of the paradigms I love is called soul language. And soul language is all about putting tangibility to soul. And there's a million reasons why I love it, but one of it is you get to understand at the core who you are and what that looks like if you are connected or if you're disconnected. Because the disconnected parts are where we're shaking our fingers at ourselves. So in the light of that, I wanted to share with you, and I got permission before we did the show, I want to share with you one of your personal soul languages.
I would love that. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to share with you because you've just demonstrated it through the whole show, which I just love how this all comes together. So made a one-time connection with your soul. I asked, for the purposes of our conversation, what would be the best, because we come with 3 languages. What would be the best language for our conversation? And your soul selected our axiom of quest language. This is our mission language. Okay. And so for you, what I'm going to give you the name of it, the description, and what you would experience when you're connected and when you're disconnected. And now remember, this is something that we're putting language to soul. So we're putting language to the ineffable. So please listen as a whole, as opposed to getting caught up on like one word or two. Okay. And then we'll see how it resonates with you. So for you, your mission language is called genius. Your mission is to usher in a new way of existence, to influence conduct, and to change history, events, and the way people think. This mission is not about your IQ. It is your innate ability through the vehicle of divine intelligence to be the spark for a movement, a revolution, or a new way of being that changes people, the planet, and the universe. When you are consciously connected with this part of yourself, things you would experience, understanding this intelligence is both within and outside of you, part of you and part of the universe, creating true support teams that help fan the fire of this movement, feeling and seeing the physical expression of a new way of being open and unconditional to yourself and others, being unafraid of the bigness of your mission. On the flip side, if you were disconnected from this part of yourself, things that you might experience, feeling alone and misunderstood, feeling as if there's no movement in your life or with your mission, trying to control the process, being full of pride and self-righteousness, feeling like a failure. So there's a few other things I could share, but let's just stop there for the purposes of this conversation and tell me how that resonates.
Oh my God, 100%. 100. And I talked about my dark night of the soul. It's exactly that latter part that you described there. Like, yeah, I might not as well be here if this is the experience.
Right, exactly. No, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let me ask you one question about this. So if I were to have given this information to you when you were in the middle of your accountant years, how would it have landed?
I would have told you, yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You've gone off the deep end. No, I would not have been, when I talk about opening up, I would not have been open to that message at all.
Yeah. And so I think that, and people tend to ask for this kind of information when they're starting to open, right? So one of the things I love about it is that it can be a beacon that we get to keep coming back to, so that when we're in that process, that initial process of really allowing ourselves to blossom, we can say, okay, all right, I'm feeling like a failure. I'm feeling alone and nobody understands me. Okay, now wait a minute. I'm just disconnected. That's all that means. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't have to jump off the planet just to go back to that center of love. All I need to do is reconnect.
Right. But first you have to realize though that you are whole. Yeah. You are already complete. So if you were coming from the paradigm that you're broken, that you are unworthy, it's so hard to align and vibrate from what you were talking about, right? So again, open up and go beyond our training, go beyond our identity, go beyond the programming and conditioning. So some parents have said to their children, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. Or some parents have said, you're a princess, you're a princess, you're a princess, and never fully recognizing the fullest of their potential, So know that your soul is here for a reason, and that who you are is always evolving, always blossoming.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So you've dropped so many pieces of wisdom here already. Is there a specific tool or experience that you would like to take our listeners through?
Sure. And you talked about integration earlier, and that's exactly to come into soul leadership, you have to And I'm saying have to, because really we have no choice but to come into fullness, come into oneness, come in integrity with our soul. So how do we do that? So I mentioned 4 bodies before. We are a physical, we are emotional, we are mental and spiritual body. So if they are separate from each other, can you feel you feel discombobulated, you
Yeah.
feel somewhat afraid, you feel not in control, you feel all over the place, right? But if gather them up together, right? Pull them, make them all line up so that your physical, your emotional, your mental, and spiritual are all lined up. Just imagine all those 4 bodies lined up as a singular pillar of lights, and just sit there and feel the harmony, feel the integrity, feel coherence, that you're not fighting against yourselves, against different parts of you. Your mind is actually agreeing with your heart. Your soul is actually embracing your ego. Your ego is not trying to one up your soul, right? They're all in harmony and oneness and neutrality too. Like neutral, no good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is. So when you come into this place of centeredness, of wholeness, of oneness, of harmony, whatever it is that you call it integration, call it alignment, call it your higher self. Just feel into this, that you don't have to fight with yourself any longer. And you as a powerful leader of your own life, as a soul power, you can command all parts and aspects and dimensions of you to align in oneness, so that you are fully supporting you, so that you are fully returning to you, so that you are coming from soul level, not from separatedness, not from compartmentalization. So oneness, soul power, wholeness. And that is who you really are. And from there, everything is possible.
Wow. So as I was bringing all those pieces together, and I think I'm, here I am in the podcast, I'm leaning on my mental body a little bit, right? Because I want to keep the flow going and all of that. But it's when I let go and let everything come into alignment, I felt first my physical body just relax, right? My shoulders relaxed, my whole being just went, ah. And it was almost like, I don't know how to describe it. It was almost like there were little pieces that were like jumping off as I came into alignment. I could feel like there were little pieces letting go from my mental, little pieces letting go from my emotional, like things that I don't even know what they were. I don't need to know what they were, right? They're leaving.
Yes. They're just letting go. Yeah.
They're just letting go, right? So, and if this, I mean, how powerful a shift would we make on this planet if everybody simply committed to first be the pillar, right? To first be this beacon of light, and then parent, and then work with their money, and then go to work, and then, right? What an incredible shift that would be.
Yes. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it is.
It's so amazing. When it's a simple shift. And from there, everything opens up.
Right. So, that coherence. And I think that as we are, when we reach that point, the breaking point, so to speak, when we say life can't be any different, or it needs to be different, I can't do this piece anymore. I know it can sound too simple to be true, but simply allowing that coherence, because then you have that channel, right? Nice and strong. And then you can hear. You can hear the whisper, because sometimes it does sound like a whisper. You can hear the whisper of soul. You can hear the whisper of spirit. You can feel the tug, the yes, no, right? As you were speaking out before, yes, this feels good. Nope, no, it doesn't, right? And we can allow it to be simple.
Yeah. And also we can hear, like what you read to me back then, I couldn't hear it. But
Right.
if I just simply allow myself to a higher expression of me, right? To just whatever it is, just a higher, more natural expression of me, then I can hear what you actually said in my reading, in my soul language.
Yeah.
Genius. Oh my God, that would have freaked me out before.
That's a big one. I will have to say of all of the axiom of quests, I think that one, of course I hear, I talk to, as a soul language practitioner, I have a connection with each of the languages and they're all speaking in my ear saying, we all have the same importance. And I want to recognize that out loud. And yet from a ego point of view, right? If we were simply looking through ego, stepping into something that says, oh, I'm here to change the world.
Yeah.
How am I going to do that? Right. But again, it's step by step. Find your alignment, find your coherence, release what doesn't allow it, and allow yourself to be led through joy.
Through joy, yes.
Through joy.
and do you remember me praying to God to take me back?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if God actually answered my prayer?
Right.
I would never have found joy. God cannot interfere. I have to step into joy myself. And that would be for everyone too. Sometimes we over rely on God and then project all our shit on this creation process. And we don't have to do that any longer. What we need to do is step into our soul power, claim our divinity, and feel allow the physicalization of our soul, our light into this body.
Well, my friend, I think we're going to leave it there. I don't know that there's anything else to say. Tess, thank you so much for being present here today, for sharing your wisdom, for really explaining this what true soul powered living is. Such a joy to hear. And I'm going to encourage all of you who are listening, please check out her resources. I can't wait to take a listen to your podcast and hear what you're presenting. And please take a look. She's got so much to share. And of course, yes. So thank you all for being present, for tuning into Soul Wisdom Abundance again this week. I'm Jennifer Bloom, and I help you to reawaken and heal that soul money relationship. Money is a fantastic teacher. It helps us come back to soul. And we are here on Soul Wisdom Abundance the first and the third Fridays of every month. So please keep tuning in. And if you have any interest in letting me know what you're thinking about the shows, topics you'd like to hear, please DM me. Best place to do that is through Instagram, soul.abundance. Let me know what you want to hear about. And until then, I want to offer each and every one of you prosperous blessings. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom, creating wealth from spiritual health on transformationtalkradio.com. To learn more about Jennifer Bloom or listen to past shows, visit jenniferbloom.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on any of your favorite podcasting outlets. Simply search Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom.